All right. Well, good morning, Rotary District 7770, and welcome to Conversations with Rotary Action People for Monday, August 23rd. Only one more Monday after today left in the month of August. Can you believe it? Wow. My name is Donald Hovis, and I am your CWRAP host, and I'm from the Chicora Rotary Club in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'd like to give a shout out to our CWRAP coordinator. I noticed that in the email today. CWRAP coordinator. I like that very official title of Mary Gask, who sets up all of our speakers for our wonderful program. Shout out to our CWRAP coordinator. She is on vacation and still tuning in. So very dedicated to Rotary. Thank you, Mary. All right. So as I said a few minutes ago, today is National Ride the Wind Day, but it is also two other special days today. Would you believe it is National Sponge Cake Day? Go out and eat some sponge cake today. And then if you're hungry for lunch in about an hour or so, go somewhere with a Cuban sandwich, because today is National Cuban Sandwich Day. So in the chat box, if you will post your name, your Rotary Club, and have you ever had sponge cake? Ever had a Cuban sandwich? Maybe tell us a little bit about those two. And don't forget, go out this afternoon and ride the wind, okay? Because it's National Ride the Wind Day. All right, so enough of that. Our speaker today is the Regional Executive Director for Mothers Against Drunk Driving. And yes, I will call you to his background and to the very interesting logo there that is a key with a martini glass. Now, Stephen, I believe you're going to talk to us just outside of alcohol, a lot of things about drunk driving. But first of all, welcome, and thank you for being here, sir.
I appreciate the invitation so much. Always glad to share what we're doing. And obviously your organization is doing great things, and we're doing some exciting things, and glad to share that with you. So we'll keep it more interesting than my face. So I'm going to kind of put up a slideshow here for everyone. Get it going here. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about what MADD is doing in South Carolina, and I'll try to highlight some things specific to the kind of that may be going on in the region of the state that most of you all are from. But as important of what we do is why we do what we do. So we always like to start with what we call a mission moment. And I want to introduce you here to this picture. This is Alana Long. Alana lives in Charleston. She is one of our newer great volunteers. She is a massage therapist and owns a place in Charleston where they do wellness and things like that. She's got a wonderful positive energy and spirit. She's just a joy to be around, and she's doing great things with us. But one of the amazing things that she has, as positive as she is because she's also unfortunately undergone some great tragedy. So you see there in that picture, this was probably in early May 2020. She was pregnant there with her second child. May 17th, she and her mother and her 3-year-old son were in the car when they were hit by a drunk driver. They all survived except her unborn baby, Travis. So unfortunately, he was 30 weeks and was not able to survive the crash. She now, in honor of him and her struggle, is working with MADD. She's the chair of our Walk in the Low Country. She's often speaking, really trying to make a difference, looking to see how she can make an impact and make the world and our roads a safer place. And again, with this amazing spirit of positivity and kindness, and these are the wonderful people that I get to work with almost every day, because, you know, sadly, there's really probably not a day that goes by that I'm not in touch with some way with somebody who's been impacted terribly by an impaired driving crash. But ever since the very first mother that started Mothers Against Drunk Driving in 1980, we are built on a legacy of amazing people turning their pain into purpose. There's hardly anything more selfless and brave than sharing your heartache with the world so that other people will make better decisions, or that things can change for the better. And we do all that because we know what we're trying to impact is doable, because it is 100% preventable. I can't tell you tomorrow how nobody can die from a heart attack or cancer or COVID, but I can tell you how tomorrow not a single person can die in an impaired driving crash. And that's simply people separating their decision to drive from their decision to use any sort of impairing substance. If everybody did that, I'll gladly lose this job and go do something else important in the world. So please put me out of a job. But what we have been doing fortunately, I'm very proud to say is incredibly impactful. So as bad as drunk driving is today, it was twice as bad in 1980 when MADD was founded. So to cut something so terrible by 50% is a massive accomplishment. And while certainly MADD hasn't done all of that by ourselves, there's been other advances in the world, and certainly lots of partnerships that we do everything in through partnerships. It really does a lot of the biggest things that have changed those numbers are things like the 21 drinking age, the 0.08 BAC movement across the country. And MADD was definitely at the tip of the spear for a lot of those changes that took place. And very importantly, just changing the culture. Of course, there was a time when drunk driving used to be almost more of a joke than something taken seriously. And I'd like to think we've made a huge impact now, where if your best friend told you that they had gotten drunk and driven home the night before, you would be furious and tell them so, and tell them how stupid that was, as opposed to just kind of laughing it off, letting it go, like unfortunately used to be the case. So if those numbers had not changed, we would see perhaps more than 400,000 lives that worse than we are now, but that's the impact that's growing every year. And very importantly, I'm going to talk a little bit about what we do to serve victims, but we're getting close to probably 1 million victims served, and very possibly have served 1 million victims, because in the early days, obviously, as a grassroots organization, the record keeping probably wasn't what it is today. So that's sad. There's been so many people that we've had to serve, but it is our honor to serve each and every one of those victims that have been impacted. So the not so good news, because we have changed things over the years greatly as a nation. South Carolina, however, unfortunately, is arguably perhaps the worst state in the country for drunk driving, certainly among the very worst. You can see there that we're 10th in the nation in drunk driving deaths for a state that's 23rd in population. That means in a year like 2019, the 285 drunk driving fatalities that we had is actually more than a state like Michigan that had like 6 million more people than we do, or even more than the state of New York, which has 4 times our population, but we had more drunk driving deaths than they did. Those numbers are insane, and we have so much work to do, and that's what we're about. And I'm going to tell you about what we are doing. So this is our mission: to end drunk driving, to help fight drug driving, to support the victims of these violent crimes, and to prevent underage drinking. And I just want to give a little shout out to our statewide sponsor, Foothills Community Foundation, who helps us get a lot of these things done through their generosity. So when I say eliminate drunk driving, what does that actually mean? What are we actually trying to accomplish? So the first part of our plan to do that, and that we're doing almost every day, is supporting our law enforcement heroes. It is difficult to be a law enforcement officer anywhere. It is especially difficult to be a DUI cop in South Carolina. We make things very difficult for them, which I could go way off into a large talk. But Wednesday morning, I'll be speaking to a group of traffic safety officers across the state. Thursday, I'll be at a meeting in Kershaw County with law enforcement officers. I'll be in 4 places next week meeting with South Carolina law enforcement. And the main thing we do while we're there is to tell them thank you. And that's our honor to do that. And we hope we also find ways to keep them motivated to keep at it despite the frustrations that they're going to face. And we're grateful to the Bring Gardner Injury Law Firm out of Charleston for helping us to do a lot of what we do to support our law enforcement officers. In terms of what we're trying to change at the state level, in terms of our laws, there are many, many things we need to change about our DUI laws in South Carolina. The one that we are focused on the most, because it's our #1 national priority and it is the most effective and proven way to save lives, is we're trying to get South Carolina's law changed so that every person convicted of DUI has to get one of these ignition interlock devices installed on their car for some period of time, not the rest of their lives. Basically, you have to blow sober into these devices for your car to start. 34 states have done what we're trying to do, which is to require that of all convicted DUI offenders. Right now in South Carolina, we only require it for those who are repeat offenders or first-time offenders if their BAC is 0.15 or higher, which is incredibly intoxicated. And again, the states with the greatest life-saving impact have been the ones who have used them the most. And for us, again, that would be just getting rid of that 0.15 cutoff and just saying everyone convicted. Senate Bill 28 is the bill where we're trying to get that done. It did pass the Senate this year, on a vote of 40-1. So there's lots of support in the legislature for it. Unfortunately, we still run into barriers of getting it moving. The House did not act in it on the time that they had when it crossed over. So we will be back at it in 2022, and we are grateful anytime is willing to let their legislators know that Senate Bill 28 has to pass. We need DUI reform, and we certainly just can't stay content with the way things are now. Obviously, we think there's a direct link between our statistics and the fact that our laws have so many problems with them, and this would be a huge step forward. What we currently have, which we're grateful for, but we passed in 2013 called Emma's Law. I'll just note that Emma Longstreet was 5 years old in Lexington, South Carolina, which is where I live. Literally, she lived about a mile from my house, and I went through the same intersection her family went through on the morning they were killed about 50 minutes later. It really could be anybody that these tragedies happened to. That certainly drove the point home for me. So we're trying to strengthen this law that is named in her memory. But on the federal level, there's some really exciting stuff going on. This is great timing. I'm glad this worked out to be able to share this with you. So we're always obviously trying to change things at the federal level, but something really exciting is happening. In a very brief version, there's a man named Ken Snyder, who sadly, his daughter was killed in a drunk driving crash while she was driving to the hospital to take care of two of her premature babies that were in the NICU, and a drunk driver killed her. Ken is very connected in the technology side of the automobile industry, and after he began processing and got through some of the early stages of his grief of losing his daughter, he started talking to all his people in the automobile technology industry, asking, can we really not do better with technology? You know, we can do such amazing thing with cars. Has there not something been done where we can keep cars from allowing this to happen? And the answer he got back consistently was, they've already solved this problem. They've got it. They just typically don't install things on all cars until they're required to do it. And that's kind of been history with seatbelts and airbags. It's kind of a traditional thing, unfortunately. You know, I was surprised to learn this as well. So we began working behind the scenes, taking Ken all around the halls of Congress and finding supportive federal legislators. And I'm glad to say that turned into two bills, one on the House side, one on the Senate side, called the HALT and the RIDE Acts. Each of them have now passed those bodies. They were in the infrastructure bills that have passed on each side of Congress. And basically what they say is, automobile industry, we know you can do this. You've got a certain number of years to start putting this on all your vehicles. And what we think is going to probably be the main key, because we are technology neutral. So it's whatever works is what we want to see happen. We think what is going to be the most promising combination of technology is, and some cars, you may have a car that already does this, that has what's called driver monitoring systems, where there's a camera, a driver facing camera that can see where your attention is and monitor how you're driving. And in the future, perhaps if your eyes are not on the road, if they're dropping, if your pupils are dilated, if your driving's terrible, your car can give you a warning or two, tell you like, hey, get yourself set. If you're still driving dangerously, as we all know, cars can park themselves. Car will just get itself off the road. I mean, that is one way that we see technology of the future saving lives. And again, it is moving through Congress. This is something that perhaps within 10 years or so, we could see this on all new vehicles coming out. And we're talking about lives being saved from drunk driving, drugged driving, distracted driving, medical emergencies, fatigue, potentially 9,000 or more lives saved every year. So we're on the precipice of the beginning of the end of drunk driving, and this is so exciting. And now we just need to get Congress to get one of those bills across both houses and signed. The president has already said he knows about it and he's willing to sign it. So we are excited about the progress. So one day, 10, 12 years now, when you buy a new car and it's got this stuff that, you know, this driver monitoring system that's going to save lives, you can remember when the MADD guy told you about that on your Rotary Club call. And the final part of this plan is simply public support. If people don't know what we're doing and they don't know this is a cause they can get behind, then we won't make the full impact. So we're glad for the opportunity to share. Related to this, one thing that we do is called court monitoring. So some of you may know that what happens with DUI cases in the courtroom in terms of what happens after the arrest is very disappointing in our state. Not nearly enough of good arrests end up as convictions. And so court monitoring is where either we or volunteers are in the courtroom monitoring the outcome of first offense misdemeanor DUI cases. These are the 7 counties, some of them from your part of the state there, that we monitor. We put out, our last report that we put out was in December 2020. It's on our website right towards the top, madd.org/SC, and there's a button up there that says you can download the report. Basically, we're reporting out to the public about what are the conviction rates. And basically the headline is For 6 of the 7 counties that we monitored, not even 50% of the DUI arrests end as convictions. In some counties, Horry County, I know some of you are from Horry County, the conviction rate that for the cases we monitor was 29%. Now, we may be the first to say maybe not every single person arrested for DUI should be convicted, but I'm guessing you're with me and find it hard to believe that only 3 out of every 10 people arrested actually should be convicted of drunk driving. It's not that the arrests are bad. It's this, our laws are too complicated. There's too many ways for people to get out, and we're not aggressive enough, realizing that when we hold people accountable for their first time, then it's less likely they're going to do it again in the future. So if this topic interests you, you're welcome to read that report, either the whole thing or the executive summary, but we go into all the solutions that we need to make in our legislation and how we need to prosecute more aggressively and judges needed to do better. There's a lot in here, and it's some work that we think is very important. So if people want to get involved in that part of what we do, obviously we want people to call their legislators when we're pushing for reform. People can volunteer to be court monitors, and anything to thank our first responders, we consider that to be a MADD volunteer activity because they're that important to us. So I mentioned our victim services, and this is really the heart of what we do. So let me make sure I emphasize that if you or anyone you know is ever impacted by a drunk or a drug driving crash, please know that they can reach out to MADD for support. These are, like I said, we've served almost 1 million people since our founding. These are just some of the wonderful faces that we've served in this state. We could serve, I could fill up slide after slide after slide, obviously, and we have a wall that we take to some of our events that has many, many more of these faces of the people that we remember and the families that we've served. But what MADD does for victims, emotional support, advocacy in the criminal justice process. We go to court with them for those key dates, try to get them in contact with community resources they may need in the aftermath of a crash. And we are grateful to the Arbor Applegate law firm out of Charleston for being our primary victim services supporter. And people can get involved. They can be trained to be a victim advocate, serve on our helpline, and just let people know about what we do. Because again, some people get impacted like this and they go through this grief journey alone, not knowing that MADD's out there, and that breaks my heart. So anytime we can do anything where more people know that we're there as a free resource, of course, for victims, we are grateful for anyone that wants to help with that. We do care about underage drinking, both because we want teens to be safe, and also we know that you rarely find a drunk driver who started drinking after age 21. When people start earlier, it's much more likely that alcohol causes all sorts of problems for them later in life, and certainly drinking and driving is one of those things. So we have a program that we do for parents, which teaches them, encourages them to have conversations with their teens and gives them some great resources and skills to do that. And then we have a program we can take directly into schools or after school programs or church groups where we talk directly to youth. It's not the bloody car crash scare kind of program that sometimes people assume that we do. It's really oriented about all the positive things, about making good decisions, about the fact that they have the control over those decisions in their life and how they'll avoid all those negative consequences, and they can find friends. Actually, underage drinking rates are lower now than they've almost ever been in the past 30, 40 years. So more and more youth are making good decisions, and it's a great time for other people to realize that and kind of get together with a group of friends who's going to support those good decisions. So any groups across the state, schools, churches, after school programs, whatever it might be, we'd be glad to come do those presentations. That's what we do. And of course, we've also created digital versions of those as getting in front of people has become more difficult in the past year and a half. Our signature event is Walk Like MADD. So let me extend an invitation. If you are anywhere close to any of these events coming up, we would love to have you there. It's our fundraiser, but it's also our rally for our mission, our victim tribute event. We appreciate first responders. We have events coming up in the upstate in Charlotte, and then for I know Low Country is kind of where a lot of you are on November the 6th in Hampton Park in Charleston. We would love to have you there. It's a meaningful event, but also very lighthearted and hopeful and family friendly. So we kind of pack it all into those events, and it's a great thing to come to check out what we do. So we do all the things, we talk about all these things because unfortunately the numbers tell us that if we don't change things, 2 out of every 3 of us is going to be impacted by drunk driving in our lifetime. And obviously sometimes that can be in the worst ways you can imagine. So when people get involved, they raise their voice with us and it gets amplified. When people donate, that allows us to do all the support to families and keep the mission going. When people volunteer, there's so many ways to get involved, and this is just kind of a few of the things that people can do by helping with the walks and being a victim advocate and helping us fundraise or spreading the word about victim services, court monitoring. Lots of ways to get involved, from everyday kind of things or just once a month kind of things. Lots of ways to get involved in the mission. And in the end, I've kind of thrown a lot of numbers out there, but this is the one that we are most passionate about, that we work for every day. We do envision a future, and now it's more real and closer than it ever has been before. We dream about days when we have no more victims of drunk driving, and no more victims is what our motto is. If you want to catch more about what we're doing, madd.org/SC is our website. Facebook is kind of our most dynamic communication channel that you can follow what we're doing. We're getting more active in our Instagram page as well. And I appreciate the opportunity to share what we're doing and to answer any questions that you may have. So I will give the screen back to our faces there. Anything I can answer about what we're doing and what we're, or about DUI or underage drinking or any of those sort of things.
I have a question. Could you explain a little bit more about the courts and why they're not either enforcing or actually doing something to those people who have committed DUIs? I mean, how many people sort of just get off of it, and how do they get off?
Sure. Yeah, so there's a lot of problems with that, and most of it, and in the report we try to emphasize there's many areas we need to shore up, but a lot of it really does come back to the DUI law that everybody's operating under. Probably the number one thing that leads to cases not being found convictions, so that could most likely being pled down to reckless driving, sometimes dismissed altogether, is our dash cam video statute. So we have what we believe to be the nation's most restrictive dash cam statute, which means the officer's dash cam basically has to capture everything from when they first turn on the blue lights all the way up to when they put them in the back of the car, and all the things they have to do in the meantime. If they don't say everything right and do everything kind of staged in front of the camera just right, the case has a very difficult time being found a conviction. I mean, there are stories of times when they have them do the 9-step walk and turn, heel to toe walk, turn around. The person they're doing it with will take 13 steps because they're impaired and they're not following instructions, which is one of the major clues. So they step out of the video frame and they get off on their charge because, like, well, we don't have a complete video of the arrest. Like, they didn't follow the instruction. It's just crazy. So I mean, if you think you've got flashing lights and glares and darkness and weather, there's so many things that lead to that video not being perfect, not to mention just glitches in technology. In other states, if you didn't have a pristine video, you could still proceed with, they smelled like alcohol, they slurred their speech, their eyes were red, they admitted to drinking 7 beers, they blew a .16 into the machine. In our state, all those things can happen, but if your video is bad, you're pretty much not going to get a conviction. So while there's many other reasons, that's kind of at the top of the list. And then there's just many places where just many prosecutors tell us, like, it just seems like the judge just isn't interested in convicting people of DUI. So that's why we kind of spread the focus around, but clearly our laws are, I think, what distinguishes us from other states the most and create the biggest uphill climb for our officers and prosecutors.
Sorry, and Lou posted a comment in the chat while you were speaking that his car already has the attention monitoring and it works quite well, although the quick beeps may not be heard by a drunk driver.
Sure. Yeah. And what exists today wouldn't be exactly what, will probably exist 10, 12 years. I mean, it's exciting to think about how much more progress there will be. I just got a relatively new car as well, and it's got, driver assistance features, not that, but, lane assist and all that type of stuff. It takes some getting used to, but it's exciting to think if that's where we are today, where we can be in maybe 10 years from now. It's really exciting. And so the end is near, we like to think, and it's exciting.
Stephen, we had a friend whose son was caught driving, and he had eaten some, it wasn't brownies, it was some kind of cookies or something. Anyway, he was impaired. There was some marijuana in the cookies. This man, because he was leaving the country, had to get his son's car outfitted in the breathalyzer thing. The car wouldn't start unless he blew into it. There's also a camera in the car. Right. He's not allowed to drive any other car, because if he's caught driving any other car, he will be arrested. And this was his first time. He's a good kid, but first time. So Virginia's laws are very tough on this. I was really glad to hear it. I mean, I was sorry for the kid, but he's learned a good lesson, and he is a good kid. He won't do this again, for sure.
Sure. And we're the first to say, you know, a DUI doesn't have to ruin somebody for the rest of their lives. And that's one of the great things about ignition interlock devices. They're targeted exactly for this behavior that we're concerned about. And they are so effective. In fact, I blew past probably one of my favorite statistics. Since 2006, those devices have blocked 3.4 million drunk driving trips in our country. 3.4 million times somebody got behind the wheel, tried to blow into that device with a 0.08 or higher, and the device wouldn't let them. How could we not be falling all over ourselves trying to use those devices as much as possible? Only 0.5% of those stops were in South Carolina. Again, the other states that apply them much more broadly to people who have had DUI charges are getting much more of that life-saving impact, and we certainly need it here.
Thank you, Stephen. How can a Rotary Club get signed up as a group to help with MADD?
Sure. So there are some organizations at times that just they want to kind of be partner organizations. So anyone's willing to can sign up as a volunteer, and we can go through again what we do and which parts interest them the most. But in terms of kind of partnering up as an organization, a few things that come to mind would be volunteering as a group at one of our walks, or just having a walk team and fundraising and just being a part of the event that way. During the holiday season, I didn't mention it's what we call the Taiwan On for Safety campaign. If you think, a lot of people, when they think about MADD, they think about the red ribbons on the car antennas. Of course, we don't have car antennas anymore, but we still have the red ribbons. They go well on door handles and rearview mirrors and keychains and things like that. But it's that symbol, particularly during the holiday season, of how important it is to either use a designated driver if your plans include alcohol, or to be a designated driver. So during the holiday season, if you all have ways to help get the ribbons out into the community, either through your club or your workplaces, the more people see those ribbons and hopefully think about the message about the importance of being a designated driver, hopefully that will cut down on some poor decision making that does tend to happen more often during the holiday season when people are celebrating more and working less. But obviously people can be court monitoring volunteers. Anytime we have other sort of events going on that people want to be involved in, they're welcome to do that. Sponsorships. So it's just a matter of having a conversation about what type of things kind of interest you the most, but there's definitely ways for the groups to work together for the greater good. Yes, sir.
Could you explain what's entailed with court monitoring?
Sure. So anyone can be volunteered to do that. Of course, they have to have daytime flexibility because that's when court happens. But basically, we train people online relatively quickly, just on basic demeanor in the courtroom. And their job basically is, we give them a kind of roster of DUI cases that are going to be heard. And it's just to try to take notes furiously the best you can on everything that's said about those cases. We always go back and double check the final results online. But the goals are twofold. One is to collect that information, so eventually we can put out these reports and truly inform the public and lawmakers and the media, just how many problems we have. But also, we like to think that when MADD's in the courtroom, particularly once that volunteer, that staff person gets some face recognition by being there regularly, that maybe everybody tightens up their game a little bit. Maybe a judge isn't so quick to let a case get thrown out because somebody's foot is out of the video frame for a second, if they know that MADD's in the courtroom taking notes. Now, we don't stand up and scream and yell, and we don't wear MADD t-shirts, but eventually when somebody monitors regularly, people know that they're there. And we think maybe everyone will kind of realize that extra eyes are on them and do a little bit better. So it's a pretty easy opportunity for training. It just requires kind of some daytime flexibility and people schedule matching up with the courts in their area.
Why would you not want to wear a MADD t-shirt?
So to avoid any accusations that we are swaying judges or juries, we don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the DUI case. So we have every right to be there as citizens taking notes, but if we do anything a little too obvious, we could get some complaints for the defense attorneys and maybe have cases thrown out or dismissed. And obviously we don't want to be part of anything negative with the process. But once we get the familiarity, it's almost as good as having the MADD t-shirt, because people pretty quickly say, oh, MADD's here today. And hopefully they act a little differently.
Awesome. Well, Stephen, thank you for your presentation today. Appreciate it. I think you answered all the questions in the chat, and we appreciate your time.
Well, thank you all for the great work you're doing, and appreciate the invitation. And any questions or information, just we're easy to find, and we're glad to answer those for you.
Thanks very much, sir.
Thank you.
As we wind down here on CWRAP for Monday, August 23rd, upcoming speakers. Next Monday, to round out August, we'll have the Richland County Coroner Rutherford talking about her story from homelessness to coroner. No CWRAP on the 6th of September for Labor Day. And then on September 13th, we have Ambassador Ed McMullen, the ambassador to Switzerland under President Trump. And I will say again, if you have a speaker that has spoken to your Rotary Club or know someone that would like to be a speaker on this program, please get in contact with our CWRAP coordinator, Mary Gass, to set that up, as we are booking now, I think, towards maybe October, maybe end of September and October. So let's keep it going. All right. And remember, ride the wind today. Have a Cuban sandwich for lunch. Have some sponge cake for dessert. And just have a great week. I will conclude with the Rotary four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Have a great week, Rotarians, and we'll see you next Monday, August 30th, for the next conversation with Rotary Action People. Take care, folks. That's a wrap.